Destiny versus Warframe. To be honest, this is my probably 10th time trying to record this now, so fuck it, I'm just gonna do this off the wall and, off the cuff. So, since the very beginning, I've tried to avoid doing this topic because I didn't want to come off as a channel that was a know-it-all, say-it-all, answer to all things type channel. I don't like being that way. And to be honest, I mostly got into power scaling because I liked video games, media, and, comics, and, manga and stuff. Like, there's select specific stuff that I like. So, let me say this before I start the video. At the end of the day, Destiny and Warframe are just video games. I got the idea to do this video because a short I saw Crimson make, and people to this day still want to show up and wank one verse while downplaying the other. It's not like that. They're just games. I like Destiny and I like Warframe. I've learned the lore for both games. I've had time to play both games. I enjoy playing both games for different reasons. I just enjoy doing what I want to do, and hopefully you can enjoy doing what you want to do. If you don't like Warframe but like playing Destiny, and you don't like Destiny but like playing Warframe, or you like playing both, that's fine, That's all I really have to say about this. I don't want to repeat myself, so in the end, let's just try to have fun and accept the opinions that we have of each other in the comments, because I have a lot of things to say in this video about both series. In the spirit of keeping opinion and subjectivity out of the scale, I want to give my subjective opinions and biases and thoughts about Warframe and Destiny here, so that we don't run into those types of issues later. Also, comment what you think about Destiny and Warframe, or one or the other. You could pause right now and comment, edit after, you could comment at the end of the video, or you can comment at the end of my opinion or biases. Otherwise, let me talk about what I like and dislike about both games. Let's talk about Destiny first. Okay, so Warframe guys, I completely get it. You don't like spending all that money on Destiny. It's very cost heavy, and sometimes it doesn't even feel worth it to play this season. I'm gonna be honest. That being said, what I like about Destiny is that you have content like raids, dungeons, you have nightfalls, and you have the hardest available versions of that content. You have Grandmaster Nightfalls, Master Raids, Master Dungeons. You even have Nightfall versions of Strikes before even Grandmaster tier, and then you have Master level season activity. The seasonal activity is obviously different from season to season, but there's master versions of all of those, which is a new standard Bungie adopted. I like that there's 113 exotic weapons, with over 70% of them having very good firepower, stopping power, utility support, you name it. At least the majority of the exotics in the game are all very good and feel good to use. I like that there's a form of consistency with what to expect out of your weapons. You have infinite ammo with your primaries, so they're not going to be as powerful, meaning they're used to kill adds. You have special weapons, which have finite ammo and very good stopping power depending on the situation they're useful for. And then you have heavy weapons, which dominate the slot we all use for trying to mess bosses up, or chunky enemies. I like that there's a wide variety of these kinds of weapons in Destiny. That's what I like about Destiny. I like that I can play a Titan Warlock Hunter and that I have access to 5 different subclasses, and there's a lot of lore in the game. They try to put lore everywhere. They try to put lore in the armor, the weapons, the artifact. You have the seasonal artifact, which changes season by season, so every season in the game on some level feels fresh, even if the content doesn't always feel fresh. Now for Warframe guys, I also get it, because I enjoy playing Warframe as well. I like that in Warframe, it's all free to play, so I don't have to spend any money in Warframe. I like that it doesn't feel like I have to get 113 exotic weapons, which is the count of exotic weapons for Destiny. I like that I don't have to get primes, and I like that I don't have to get prime warframes. I like that I don't have to get prime pets either. There's a very small difference between primes and their normal counterparts, so it never feels like you're truly losing out. Also, in Warframe, I like that there's elemental damage types more than there is in Destiny. I like that there's 53 Warframes, and I like the diversity in weapon usage. I like that in Warframe, while in Destiny, you can use primary and special weapons in either slot, there's very good secondary weapons and very good primary weapons. But what Warframe trades for not being able to use, say, 2 special weapons from Destiny is that you can always use a melee weapon. And you can always use melee-based builds with your Warframe and make them work with your melee weapon, depending on the frame. I like that in Warframe, I can go to different planets in the system. I like that I can go to something like the Void, farm in the Void if I'm tired of that. I can go and farm on Earth, or I could go and farm on Deimos. I like that there's a form of survival, that there's a form of free roam. In Destiny, it doesn't have as much of the free roam, even though it does have patrols. I like that in Warframe, I'm truly able to just kick back and have fun because there's multiple different kinds of endgames, because it's not as explicit as it is for Destiny, where there's just Master and Grandmaster stuff. In Warframe, you have anything from just what you'd call it and consider the crazy of the crazy, the 1% of the 1%ers, the level 5000 farm. You have something like Stealth Path content, which is harder content, but a bit harder than Star Chart, but not nearly as hard as what you think level 5000 would be. There's also endless survival, in that different warframes are very powerful for specific parts of the game that they're useful in. So I feel like that in Warframe, whereas say that there's the classes in Destiny, the multiple exotic armors that make you play in a different way, that at least different warframes are very useful for certain mission types. So that there's always going to be a reason to run a different Warframe also. While I played Destiny far longer, I completely see the appeal of Warframe, and I play Warframe pretty consistently. While I don't have as many clips of Warframe because a lot of them got yeeted off my Xbox because Microsoft is, doodoo, I clearly do like to play Warframe a lot. I'm MR13, I got a pretty mean Hildren Prime set up. I enjoy what I do in Warframe, truly. I don't really have much else to say, so I'm going to go ahead and continue with what I'm going to define as the scaling parameters. For Destiny, let me make this clear. Weekly story missions are not canon. Any form of Nightfall, from Hero all the way to Grandmaster difficulty, is not canon. Master seasonal activities are not canon. Master raids are not canon. Master dungeons are not canon. To a certain degree, the mod system is not canon. Depending on how you treat the exotic armors, some of their properties of what you consider their elements to be are also not canon. For example, let's look at Heavy-Handed. For the mod Heavy-Handed, use 2, you add 2 different effects, with one of them being separated and being turned into a different mod entirely, with the other half of Heavy-Handed simply being reworked into giving you an elemental orb, where say before, you got half of your melee energy back when you use Heavy-Handed. So there's a reason why I don't use mods when I make scaling videos, which is the mod system is meant to enhance your experience and can be reworked and changed in any shape or form. This is the same for fragments. One of the stasis fragments was reworked within 2 seasons, so I never use fragments as any canonicity arguments. I only use aspects, and even then, I'd be very careful when I argue for aspects. Otherwise, I wouldn't say much else other than I'm going to make the same argument that I make in my prior videos, which is gameplay is not the same as lore. You need something in the lore telling you that your character got nerfed before you can say they got nerfed. Otherwise, when you get shot in the gameplay and you lose 10 health points and you get them back, that does not mean you've been nerfed. Me getting shot by a random piece of trash in hard content and being killed by it does not mean that piece of trash scales to or above me. That simply means that's how the gameplay was set in the difficulty of the mission or missions that you're playing. Warframe scalers, stop using Grandmaster Nightfalls or Nightfall activities or champions to try to downplay Guardians, and at the same time, Destiny scalers, stop trying to use random Grenier or Corpus trash to downplay Warframes to simply street level or like wall level. The scale between the Warframes is in a spectrum. You have something broken like Kilovo, who has busted conceptual to outright narrative manip. You have Atlas destroying asteroids, so scaling to country level. You have Protea, who has a dimension feat, being able to create a dimension using time and space, so it's explicitly Universal Plus. You have a lot of stuff that scale the Warframes pretty high, and the gameplay does not reflect that for all the Warframes, because you're meant to have fun playing as who you have fun playing as. Who you have fun playing as does not change who gets stabbed in the gut by the Stalker in the quest where you have to deal with him and Hunhao, just like you getting stabbed by Ballas in the New War quest does not change anything at all if you play a certain type of Warframe. So, let's make this clear, we're only using the lore, we're only coming here for good arguments and not that trash you see on TikTok and YouTube Shorts. In Warframe, it's one of the only series in fiction that I've seen that has two defining themes inverse of its story being told. Let me explain. You have themes of dualism and light and dark. And then you have another theme, which is the concept of eternalism in Warframe. On a certain level, in order to understand the cosmology, you have to understand how fundamentally important these two themes are inside Warframe. In dualism, there's always themes of halves. There's always themes of one needs the other half in order to continue on. For example, the universe, it's in halves. The Void is a living, breathing entity who is a consciousness, who is also the other half of the cosmology. And the physical universe is the same as any other universe that you'd assume it to be. Except the whole universe is comprised of both the Void and the normal universe. The normal universe has what you would consider things that are tangible, measurable, understandable. You have dimension, shape, width, volume. In the Void, it's the opposite. You have the very emotions and very ideas of things becoming reality through our minds, becoming literal reality through conception of what we look at, what we think about, what we have as fears and anxieties. Our emotions, when they run wild, truly manifest things we are not aware of. We'll bring up dualism in a minute or two, but the reason why I wanted to start off with dualism is because keep in mind that in Warframe, it's stated verbatim that when Void and consciousness meet, it becomes a concept. And that there are specific things relating to concepts that I'll get to later. But let's talk about the other half of Warframe, the other theme that it has. Something called eternalism. Now, let me make this clear. Eternalism was made true and canon when the Man in the Wall made the deal with the MC and we saw that there was multiple timelines. In the multiple timelines we saw the MC, they became evil and died, or they were corrupted and died. And there's only two possibilities left, which is the Drifter and the Operator. All those possibilities, the infinite possibilities and the infinite timelines, were condensed to one timeline, two possibilities that happen simultaneously. Which means in Warframe, the story is not as linear as you'd expect it to be in Destiny due to the fact that fundamentally, time and how the universe works is not linear. So this means you can play as either the Drifter and the Operator, and both can only be in the universe, but only one can occupy the universe at one time, because both can only meet on the Zariman, which is their overlapping meeting spot. Now, you've heard me talk about Multiversal Plus for Warframe or Infinite Multiversal, but there is more for it. There's an entity called the Unam Spirit And this is when we first heard about Multiversal Plus for Warframe. So the Unam has these people called the Quill. The Quill each oversee a universe. 1 Quill per universe. There's, give or take, a finite to infinite amount of these Quill. We're not told exactly how many Quill verbatim there is, but we know there's multiple Quill. The Unam spirit is stated to look at or view infinite timelines or infinite possibilities. The Unam spirit is someone who gets surpassed later in the story, so it is viable as a scaling end. As a quick side note, we only visit this place once, but there's a place called the Weave, and only the Cephalons can come into the Weave, where they can physically manifest. The Weave is a place where we visit when we have to save Cephalon Suda from Hunhao in the Octavia's Anthem quest. That's why you've probably heard of the place, the Weave. You have to go to Cephalon Samaris for that. Because the Man in the Wall would transcend the Weave, that's always why you hear the 6-dimensional arguments with Man in the Wall. You either always hear 4D, 5D, or 6D. 6D is because of the Weave, which is 5D. So, just a quick little scaling tidbit in case you was wondering about the Weave, because it's only mentioned once or twice in the game, and that's it. And now for a scaling end you've never even heard of from anyone else. And the reason why is because it's taken the last 7 years in order for these set of arguments to solidify. It's taken 7 years before they could truly be called one of the most consistent metas for Warframe. This is the Outerversal meta. Let me explain. So, in the deal that was made with Man in the Wall, the Drifter and the Operator were the 2 possibilities that were remaining. The Drifter was the one who didn't leave the Zariman. They stayed. And the Tales of Duviri that they were told in school, what ended up happening was that entire book became a world. It's a stint in the void, a literal reality in of itself, but attached to the void. It's like when you have a bubble and there's a stint on top of the bubble, and it looks like a mini bubble, but it's actually attached to the bubble. This is what Duviri is. It's a conceptual world attached to the void. Now, if you remember correctly, a conceptual world, which has to contain, like, the concepts of space and time, has to be outerversal by definition because of the properties that make it. It's one of the most blatant things I've ever seen with Warframe. The Drifter literally creating Duviri with their own power after the deal they made with Wally. But there's a catch to this. They didn't manifest their void powers fully until later. Although, because the deal with the Man in the Wall, they still gained enough strength and hacks potency-wise to create Duviri. So, if anything, they got even stronger later. Now, here's the thing. What no one knows, or probably some know, is that the Drifter and the Operator both scale below each and every Warframe. So this means that your most innocent type Warframes like Ash, Saren, the quote-unquote not broken ones, they have to be outerversal because they have to scale higher than the Drifter, because only the Operator or the Drifter with the Warframe could equal a full power Nata with the 3rd Archon Crystal, or somewhere near it. This being said, this means you can scale every Warframe at this point to outerversal. And then we got something even freakier with this outerversal meta. There's a Warframe named Equinox. Equinox is meant to embody a conceptual duality. If you recall, a conceptual duality on some level is transdual. When you are if you are conceptually a duality, this on some level would include the laws of space and time, life and death, etc. Now, I'm willing to commit less to this argument than I am other arguments, but what I'm saying here is because of the Drifter, a transdual conceptual duality Equinox being outerversal is completely and easily feasible to understand. And then there's something else on top of this. In the New War, Ballast weakened the Unam spirit and gained a lot of her power. So even inverse, you can apply this meta to above the Unam spirit, to specifically the god tiers who scale somewhere above the Unam spirit, who would be more or less the pinnacle of Multiversal Plus or Multiversal. So I didn't realize that this was a meta in Warframe. Now, I want to drop one more comment about something I saw when I was going through the cutscenes again. There was something talking about temporal axioms. Now, assuming I'm not taking this literally and the man in the wall actually just scales above like the entire universe, as in the other half of the universe that the man in the wall isn't, that he's trying to go into, this would mean, on some level, that you could argue axiomatic scaling for the man in the wall. But the thing is, you don't need axiomatic scaling in order to scale man in the wall to outerversal or high outerversal, because he already transcends outerversal entities to the extent that they're beyond nothing to him. That anything in the lore that's been considered significant is also lore-wise insignificant to the man in the wall. So you can still scale man in the wall to high outerversal just fine. I would just be very careful on who else you scale to high outerversal. It's entirely possible that you can scale the Warframes to high outerversal. It's just, you know, as with all things, we want to be careful because this is a completely new and fleshed out meta. It's going to be expanded upon and it's going to be developed even more later. So I imagine some arguments I come up with now might be even stronger in the future depending on what happens. But because I cannot future tell, I cannot tell you what's going to happen. So otherwise, I would watch out for what happens in Warframe 1999 and Whispers in the Wall, and you know, we go with the flow. So that's all I really have for Warframe. So let me cover Destiny's cosmology, and I'm going to do this all in one take because I've went through hell and back trying to do the Warframe segment, so we're just going to do whatever I feel like doing here for Destiny's cosmology, because people also know me for doing Destiny's cosmology. Anyway, so it's really simple on a certain level. We're going to ignore the Gardener and the Winnower because that's a debate, and we're just going to consider the Witness as first placed inverse for the sake of this segment, because I'd rather not get into another debate while I'm talking about a topic that's not the particular debate regarding the Gardener and the Winnower. Anyway, let's begin. So there's an infinite multiverse in Destiny, and each of these multiverses contain a universe. We'll get to the universe in a minute. Now, the question about the Paraverse and Dares of Eternity stuff, here's what I'd say. There's a wormhole going into the game show, which is filled with the infinite timelines of Destiny, along with other Bungie series that they have had the rights to and have produced before, because we don't want to conflate what Bungie made with Halo with what other companies made with Halo. Other than that, I would just say kind of consider Eternity like on the side, just somewhere over there. Starhorse should scale below the Witness, so the Witness would obviously scale above the Paraverse. If you want to know more about that, check both my Witness videos. Other than that, just kind of consider that on the side of the infinite timelines. Now, let's go back to the universe. Now that we've established that there's an infinite amount of timelines, based on what LC Bray tells us, the universe itself is divided into thirds. The specific analogy used, however, is a stack of coins analogy. The stack of coins analogy is saying that the top coin is the physical universe, the bottom coin is the ascendant plane, and the middle coin is the ley lines. But the analogy I'm going to use here is a thirds analogy. Here's the reason. In the physical universe, you have parts of the cosmology we have to cover, and then the ascendant plane has the other half of the cosmology which we have to cover, and then the ley lines is kind of like the middle group of the two. So, in the physical universe, it's pretty odd. You have a timeline or an infinite amount of timelines on each planet. Nessus, in particular, is a 10th dimensional moon. And then there's also a conversation that Clovis First and Clovis II have regarding maps. And there is a subtle statement from Clovis the First about the Witness and how it looks at the universe in their conversation about maps. I'm going to link the maps thing below too. Continuing on, within the physical universe, not only do we have the issue of planetoids possibly being universes, and Nessus being a 10D planetoid, we have issues with something called the Pyramidion, the Vault Glass, and the Forge Star, and all that. If you want to know about the entire cosmology regarding the Vex, I'm gonna link a video regarding the Vex in the description, because I would literally just be repeating arguments in that video. Otherwise, to summarize, the Vault of Glass is somewhere on par, give or take, with the Pyramidion, at least the infinite dimensional structures created within that individual Pyramidion. Each Pyramidion all lead to a shared interior deeper within the Pyramidion space. A Pyramidion is stationed on a planet and it accesses library, dimension, gateway thing, and it's a tool that the Vex use ultimately. However, the Pyramidion stuff is currently in the Destiny content vault. So I don't actually have gameplay from the strike, unfortunately, but do note that it is a thing, and that I'll have something leaked below regarding the Pyramidion. Otherwise, we have stuff to cover like the Forge Star, and then that's just relating to the Beyond Light stuff. The Forge Star is where Clovis Bray went to help find materials to help him create exos. So that's not really important. The Infinite Forest is a multiverse. You can consider it multiversal or multiversal plus. Does not really matter because it does not change anything. The Vault of Glass, like I said, is similar to the Pyramidion. The Infinite Forest, I would say, even though it seems smaller because the tier is lower, it actually scales higher than Brachian because Panoptes, the creator of the Infinite Forest, scales higher than Brachian. Brachian did the infinite dimensional stuff, we killed him. Brachian came back and was even stronger, we killed him again, so that stuff is consistent. The TLDR of what you'll see in the physical universe is the Vex in the physical universe scale below the Vex you'd see in the Vex network. The Vex network is something compared to the Ascendant Plane, but we've only gotten the Vex network once or twice in terms of it being mentioned, other than the season it was debuted in. So it's not too much of a keynote other than what could come back later, I'm sure, as a future expansion or season or episode. Other than that, the Hive also don't scale as high where they do in the Ascendant Plane. An Ascendant Hive will always be weaker in the physical universe because it's only in a throne world where they have their power. This is the case for other entities. The exception to this is the Guardians because they live in the universe. Same with Cabal, they live in the universe, their technology would scale higher than them. On a certain level, their technology would scale certain paracausal entities. So, the TLDR is, you can scale anywhere from solar system level, universal, multiversal plus, you could argue 5D, you could argue 10D, you could argue even higher than that, like high hyperversal. Like, we have explicit evidence for multiversal if you think that's the case, because you can just use the obelisks and the sundial all the way back from Season of Dawn. That stuff works too. So, you know, pretty consistent lower tier stuff for, you know, scaling, and we can just use upscaling on top of whatever end you want to scale. So in the end, we can always just scale even higher than just this, because this is just the physical universe we're scaling. So to end my rant, anywhere from like solar system to high hyperversal is fine for the physical universe, because it varies from tier to tier and who scales where and when. I won't try to repeat the arguments I make in previous videos verbatim, so I'm also going to link those below, as in Watch the Orcs video or other content I've made regarding the Hive. So I'm going to keep it simple. Outerversal does not use the same system that Scaling Dimensions does, which is physics. It uses metaphysics. You're generally representing Outerversal through a philosophical framework. Although you can consider it like a system of physics, it is anatomically different than a physics-based system, inherently. So it's a faith-based system. When you have concepts, principles, systems, axioms, that's the 4 levels of metaphysics. The keynote to understand is that all non-outerversal and outerversal concepts go into the word concept, so you have to be very careful of where you scale stuff in the outerversal range. Then you have principles, which are rules. Then you have systems, which are anything from Python scripts, modes of thought, how you dictate certain actions you do. Anything that uses a set of concepts and a set of rules to determine, you can call a system. And then your axiom would be your core belief. Your belief in a god, multiple gods, no god at all. Anything you'd probably consider as a core belief of yourself, that would be an axiom. And then you have, a hierarchy of axioms. And then you have a bunch of other stuff going on in metaphysics. Anyway, the whole point isn't to go on a philosophical metaphysics rant, but it's to explain that on a certain level, when the ascendant plane is stated to shadow the physical universe, it's being verbatim about shadowing the physical universe. It's the complete opposite of what's measurable in the realm of physics. Relating this to the throne world scaling, let me get back to the throne world scaling for the ascendant plane. In the ascendant plane, things are fluid on a certain level based on power in the perspective of the person with that power. It goes by a tribute-based system. If you donate enough tribute to your god, eventually you gain enough power to become ascendant. When you become ascendant, you have this brain space that's called a cosmic universe, or a brain cosmos, or a brain universe inside the ascendant plane. This brain universe contains 11 axioms. These axioms are extremely important because they scale to something related to ontology, which I'm not going to go on a philosophy-based rant again. So, to keep it simple, you have 11 of these ontological-like axioms inside this one throne world. And then that's just the lowest of the lowest of the low of the ascendant. And then you obviously have higher levels of ascendant. You have ascendant thrall, ascendant acolytes, ascendant ogres. It's not going to tell us every single thing under the sun what is ascendant verbatim, but you can definitely tell based on the amount of hive, which again, I know I'm probably going to say this again. In my Oryx video, I cover the amount of hive within Oryx's network. So we know there's a beyond infinite amount of hive. So you factor that in with the throne world scaling, then you factor the god scaling on top of that, then you factor the 3 hive gods on top of that. Basically, you have multiple levels of high outer versal, and it's pretty legit. And then the entire ascendant plane, and as a result, half of the ley lines is owned by the witness. The witness owns half the universe like he's a real estate agent, and he's making bank on that like he's a billionaire. The thing is with the ley lines is that it's conduits, a set of conduits. Think of it as like a set of plant roots that connect the two halves of the universe. And the ley lines are governed by the rules of both the ascendant plane and the physical universe. That's what the ley lines are. They're basically a bunch of plant roots that connect two halves of the universe. But because of their importance, I consider them a third of the universe in of itself. The witness was stated verbatim by Bungie's staff to be above the universe, and they were also stated again by Joe Blackburn to be able to 1v1 anyone. And then we have other sources in Destiny talking about how the witness is above the universe, or how it sees the universe as a mere 2D map, or etc. Let's wait for final shape before we get into the witness, or frankly, a version of this, again, where I compare the two series. But in order to not leave the extent of the conversation you feel like you're confused about, I'll make it simple. Destiny's pretty high in the outer versal because of the throne world scaling, and that goes pretty high. And then you have the ascendant entities, the strongest of the ascendant, like the hive gods. They were at one time below someone named Rolk, and then at least the majority of the hive gods outscale Rolk now, so there's some scaling levels there. And then Nezarec's the strongest disciple / servant of the witness, so he's on top. And then you have all the stuff that happened between the events pertaining to the hive gods, to Nezarec, to after Nezarec, and when final shape happens, to final shape. I'm not going to go on a 20-minute rant about Destiny cosmology, so let's go ahead and continue. In order to compare the two, what we're not going to do is say Warframe destroys Destiny or Destiny destroys Warframe, because that sounds pretty stupid. But what we will do is compare the Man in the Wall to the Witness, because you can compare all the scaling inverse to those characters, meaning we are going to do a completely non-biased comparison between the two. So that I can't just say with my opinion, oh, I like Destiny more so Destiny slaps. Or, oh, I like Warframe more so Warframe slaps. So, given with what I'm saying, let's proceed with the analysis. The Witness and the Man in the Wall both have molecular and atomic destruction. The Witness and the Man in the Wall both have spiritual and mental destruction / manipulation. The Witness and the Man in the Wall both have conceptual manipulation, with there being a debate on narrative manipulation for Warframe. So, while it's likely true, I would say let's put an asterisk on narrative manipulation for Warframe. Otherwise, if you can prove it's totally consistent using Kulivo, you know, with his guilt literally writing itself into the story of Duviri, then yeah, you can get away with narrative manip. I would just say that Destiny's narrative manip with the Dreaming City is probably stronger due to the fact that the Dreaming City just simply has more lore. So, but we'll say both have narrative manip so we don't get into that toxic debate. Continuing on, you can scale both the Witness and Man in the Wall comfortably to high hyperversal to outerversal. The only problem is the Witness has stronger dimensional scaling, with there being verbatim high hyperversal stuff, whereas say with the Man in the Wall, he just has a bunch of transcendence type scaling and a few statements here and there of him being the void or just being beyond the universe and everything in it. So, we know the Witness and the Man in the Wall in some way, shape, or form transcends the universe and or owns half the universe to themselves, depending on how you interpret the void or the ascendant plane. So, okay, things are looking pretty good so far. So what are some problems? Well, let's get to outerversal and start with that. The Witness and the Man in the Wall can both comfortably get to outerversal and high outerversal. That's fine. But here's the problem with Warframe. You've noticed me covering Destiny in more intimate detail compared to Warframe, but the truth is, Destiny just has way more content compared to Warframe. It just literally has that much content. It's not DC or Marvel comics where there's like 20,000 comics in a span of like 70, 80 years, but that's like 10 years give or take worth of gameplay, with there being consistent gameplay updates and seasons starting with Forsaken and seasons being more frequent with Shadowkeep. So, in reality, there's just way more content with Destiny. So, that being said, because there's more content with Destiny, there's more ways to prove consistency for about everything across the board. Not only is there more ways to prove consistency, but as a result of that, because Destiny just puts out more content, it has just more scaling on top of how its meta works, with ontology and metaphysics and axioms and all that. Whereas, say, with Warframe, it has like one statement of temporal axioms, maybe more than one, but I only remember seeing the one in the New War. And then you have like outerversal stuff using transdualities and concepts and this, that, and the other. You know, you can use the scaling, you know, by justifying Ballast scaling above the Unam spirit when Ballast has the third Archon crystal. You can justify that by, and also use that to justify him scaling to around Hunhao, unsealed, maybe. And then the Warframes, because you can scale them to outerversal since they scale above the Drifter. That's some pretty consistent outerversal stuff. So, an advantage we'll give Warframe is, assuming there's still high hyperversal or below Guardians, it means the Warframes have a higher scaling floor. But even though they have a higher scaling floor, if you factor in the main character with Destiny, Destiny has a higher scaling ceiling. So the Guardians scale higher than the Tenno, but on a net level, the Tenno scale below the weakest of Guardians. And you can argue almost any Warframe, if not all Warframes, because they're conceptual embodiments to be outerversal by extension of what I argued earlier. We'll hypothesize with the Man in the Wall and say by extension of him having void powers and being the origin of the void, with the Tenno and the operators also having void power. We'll say for now that he has every known power or void power in Warframe, at least for the Tenno and the operators. So that's pretty cool. And for the Witness, we know they have Stasis, possibly Strand. I say possibly because we don't know how he got Strand. Maybe he always had Strand, but I'll put an asterisk on Strand for now until final shape. We know he has the powers they give until the Hive Gods, Rolk, possibly Nezarec, so... Overall, I just think the Witness has better hacks, and I'll explain why. With Man in the Wall, like my hypothesis says, he has every known Warframe power, which again, we're just using as a bar for him for now because the fight could always change later. But we have to use Proteus' feat of creating a universe and say he can create like a super souped up version of a universe. We'll just say that. The problem is, the Witness is able to create a throne world which holds 11 axioms inside of it. And then you have the ontology stuff. So even if you say Warframe has axiom scaling, there's nothing in Warframe that actually scales any of that to an ontological axiom in terms of scaling. So overall, I just think that this is a massive blowout. I think the Witness wins. He's just straight up stronger, he's faster, he has more ways to perceive what's happening to him in a very quick time span. We have more demonstrations with him. We have next to nothing for Man in the Wall. So I could just make way easier arguments for someone like the Witness compared to Man in the Wall. And even if Man in the Wall had a lot more showings later, I still don't think my conclusion would change because Warframe doesn't have ontological scaling anyhow. So regardless of how you scale Warframe or its hacks, Destiny is always going to be one step above Warframe because it has ontological scaling, and that's that. That's mostly all I have to say about that debate. I'm not going to give a biased judgment, that's just the truth. I've covered a lot of Destiny lore, I've looked at a lot of Warframe lore, that's the conclusion I've come to. So in the end, that's the judgment I'll give. I think Destiny is just a lot stronger than Warframe, but in the end, they're just video games. If you like Warframe, play Warframe. If you like Destiny, play Destiny. If you like both, play both. If you like neither, play neither. If you have any questions about what I have here, what I will refer you to is, for Warframe, a website called Oricon Archive, which it's basically the Warframe version of Ishtar Collective. There is about anything under the sun on this website called Oricon Archives. I could not have get everything for this video without their help. I do not sponsor them either, they are not sponsoring me. For Destiny, if you want to cross-check the evidence I used, go on Ishtar Collective, put in the keyword, you'll find what I'm talking about, or you can ask me what to find in Ishtar Collective. So, in the end, hopefully I gave an unbiased judgment about both series. Hopefully I communicated to you on a certain level that you would agree most on compared to the majority of other people who talk about this kind of thing, and hopefully I didn't come off as an unfair person. So in the end, I like playing both games. The debate, I think, is fucking stupid. Please let that debate die, and you're gonna do us all a favor. Anyway, let me know what you want to scale for Warframe, let me know what you want scaled for Destiny, and if it gets the most likes in the comment section, I'll do the video. I'm serious, like each other's comments if you give a suggestion, because I'll put that on the list, but it has to be for Warframe or Destiny or a crossover topic. Anyway, my name is Nothing Important here. If you're new, like, share, and subscribe. If you're returning, you know, please like, share, and subscribe. And that's all I have for you. Good night, good day, whatever. I'll see y'all. Peace.